I'm Shane Nyland, and my co-host is Blake Musser. And these stories you're about to hear are from Weapons Company, 2nd Battalion, 4th Marines, 1st Marine Division, about the events surrounding and directly from the mouths of the people who were in Ramadi 2004. Great. Let's start everybody who you are.
All right. Mike Rakebrandt. I was with you guys in Ramadi 2004. I was the senior corpsman for Weapons Company. Good
Nice, man.
times. I love you guys.
Outstanding. And we loved you.
You guys were. It was really honestly the best way I could describe it, and the way I describe it now to people who ask is it was the most humbling experience ever. I got to walk with giants for a long time, and it was truly amazing. I got to watch you guys do things that anybody else would say was absolutely impossible, and do it really well and be really, really funny while you were doing it. So it was an awesome experience. It really was.
Well, and my kudos back to you is that I saw you do some basically some black magic over there, keeping people alive. So you I've taught. Your name has come up many times over the last 20 years of being like you doing straight up witchcraft over there, keeping at least getting guys on the bird alive. That was all what we were asking for.
That was it, right? It was, and Sheena probably cringe when I say this, but it was like completely ghetto medicine. It was like whatever the hell you had to do to keep Humpty alive so that the guys like Shane are real smart can actually go fix him. I'm sure they were horrified by what they got from us, but they got them alive, so that's
that's right. They're breathing.
Yeah.
Not much more, but
it was crazy.
Now, if I remember, you were HM2?
HM2, that's right, yeah.
Nice. All right.
Yeah.
And where did you come to us from? You were with us for a long time, because I remember...
Got to you guys in Okinawa, 31st MEU, right?
Yeah.
You guys were already... I got to you guys after you had the infamous roll call, whatever, with the Sergeant Major Marine Corps. So you guys were kind of like the blunt end of the spear or whatever.
Yes.
You guys were on. I almost lynched them. I think I came like right after that. Like that was still a very hot issue when I got there. So I'm guessing I got to like right after that.
Okay.
I was at the Naval Hospital in San Diego before that, and then before that in the Navy, I was on submarine duty in Pearl Harbor, which is an interesting experience. Definitely wasn't expected, but it was interesting. Definitely mental gymnastics, man. You qualifying submarines they call it mental gymnastics, and they're not lying. It's a lot of information, but it was awesome. It definitely prepped me, I think, for a lot of things, just to be able to think independently and actually be able to work under pressure. So it kind of set me up for what came next. But yeah, it was interesting ride. But yeah, I got there and you guys were still pretty heated. I'm like, oh, that was probably not the best thing to say. Couldn't believe that. I'm like, how do you tell a Marine unit that's forward deployed for how long you guys were? You got extended, and this guy's like, yeah, you guys are the blunt end of the spear. And I'm like, oh my God, that is the worst possible. Talk about lighting a fuse.
Well, it gave us definite motivation for Ramadi, that's for sure.
Well, listen, you did the impossible. You guys won the Alamo, Yeah. Fallujah fell. They had, 5 battalions or something like that. And I don't think they fought anywhere near as hard or as much initially and when they first gave up Fallujah. And that fell with 5 battalions. And you guys were 1, and you held that city like it was, like I had no doubt at any point in any time in that city. Do I have any doubt that we were going anywhere? I'm like, no. No, they will never own this city as long as the Marine Corps decides they want to keep it. Like there was no doubt. There was never a question about what was happening in that city. It was like we're holding this, and you're all going to die. So good times.
So I'm kind of curious about what your thoughts were and what you kind of did during the prep of the workup, because we had that short period. Basically, we came back from Okinawa, and everybody who was pissed off about being called bench warmers or the blunt end of the spear. They bounced, or many people got orders to other units. That happened quite a lot too.
Yep.
People went to MSG duty. People went to they'd go to anything to get out of 2-4 because they thought we were not going anywhere.
Yep.
And so then we did a short workup starting right around like Thanksgiving. Right after that time, we did Bridgeport and some other schools and stuff.
Yep.
What was your take on everything? Because you were trying to get everybody spun up on the medical side of things.
It was it's like it's always that admin side, right? There's like always that ton of admin, so all the shots and all the other stuff, and having to get everybody kind of like all those medical records together, and then get the corpsmen together, the platoon corpsmen together, and make sure they had what they needed and they were up to speed on what they had to do and what their responsibilities were, that they understood how to do what needed to be done.
Mm-hmm.
They got the message. And then it's funny. The BAS had, I'm sure it's like everywhere else, right? The BAS had a lot of ego involved. So you had, different factions within the BAS that were kind of trying to push things one way or another, or trying to make things one way or another. And I think a lot of them are coming from a good place overall, like they meant well, but a lot of them just didn't understand what it was really truly, going to probably look like. I remember having a conversation with Keith Grimes one time, who was the golf corpsman, senior corpsman, about it. And we were both kind of the same mind, like, it's going to be an insurgent war there. It's going to be the insurgent warcraft, so the IEDs and all that stuff kind of, it was starting up, I think, just prior to that, or it had not really gone to the level we saw, but it definitely been something that had been seen already. So our thought was like, okay, so close head injuries and like, explosive trauma, things of that nature. So we were kind of trying to gear guys up to get into that mindset and just trying to honestly read the tea leaves and figure out what we were going to have to deal with, so we knew best what to bring, what to have, how to work. So that was like a lot of it. It was a lot, but it was so much admin. It was like, even in country, bro, it was a ton of admin. Military loves their administration.
How much insight, or not even insight, how much input did you have into what kind of gear all the corpsmen were going to get and what kind of things you were going to be able to bring over?
They were very they had their like their standard, like, this is what we bring. Everybody gets surgery kit, whatever, minor surgery kits and all that stuff. But they were they were actually very good about it. Lieutenant Crick and Lieutenant Sun were both very, very smart people. Very smart people, very different approaches to handling the medical side, to handling the clinic side, to handling things as far as just overall. But they were smart and they got it, and they understood that, like, at the very forefront was going to be these guys, and most of them, this would be their first deployment, much less their first anything. So they kind of got the point. So they spent a lot of time on trying to make sure that they got the input from guys who'd either already deployed before or had been in circumstances where they had to do things and had that kind of, I guess, somewhat of a knowledge of what to expect. And then the smartest thing I think they did was they reached out to these units that were coming back or that were already there, and figuring out what they were using, figuring out what they were going through most, figuring out what they were seeing the most, so that they had a kind of a real world answer to, okay, what can we really truly expect? And then they geared things towards that. The training was geared towards that. The loadout was geared towards that. So it was smart. They were smart about it. They did a good job of kind of getting things in the right places. And we had weapons company. I mean, all the corpsmen in 2-4 at that time they were just really some amazing people. But the guys we had in weapons company were definitely top notch. I mean, all of them, they were very, very knowledgeable guys. They all came with very, very strong skill sets in different arenas. And it balanced things out really well, because we were able to kind of, when somebody wasn't so strong, another guy could definitely fill back in on. So it made things very easy to kind of get everything ready to go and get everybody kind of up to speed. So it was an interesting time, right? It was like trying to get my stuff together. Had a baby on the way, my first one, and then trying to get everything. Yeah, my son was born when we were in country. He was born on August 26th. So
okay,
wow,
it's funny.
Right
I called
before
my
we got
wife.
back.
Yeah, I called my wife on the satellite phone, the due date, and they told me, oh, she's at the hospital. She had a baby or whatever. I called the Naval Hospital, and I spoke to her, and it was a pretty funny time. I said, oh, now all I got to do is figure out who the dad is, and she's like, yeah, I'm gonna put out flyers or something. So it was interesting times, but it was definitely like, it was very, very busy. I just remember, like, the medical records. Chief Foster was the chief at the time on the BAS, and like he was obsessed with those records. So it was like getting all the records up to date, getting the shots up to date. Guys who lost shot records unfortunately got turned into pincushions by Danny Brown. That was I felt bad, man. That's the guys gonna get like 10 shots. I'm like, oh, you're gonna be hurting for about a week, bro.
Yeah.
Good luck. It was crazy. It was crazy. It was a crazy buildup. It was very quick, right? It was like very rapid.
Uh-huh.
Remember like being like a really, really fast like build up. Like, okay, we're going. Okay, get your shit together. Okay, good, we're out. You know what I mean? Like, it's fast.
Did you end up having any schools that you were able to, right, coming back from Okinawa, and then in between that time, did you go to any specialty schools, or were you just grinding away?
We were just getting ready. We were training, getting like training done, getting the records up to date, getting all the equipment and material needed. Like, I think 3/4 of what I brought with me, I probably stole from a naval hospital somewhere. You know what I mean? Like, medicine, IV bags, IV setups. You don't get much in supply. Like they kind of like shortchange you a lot. So we weren't going without stuff. So between all of us, we were, raiding everywhere we'd been before. Myself and Keith Grimes had come from Balboa from Naval Hospital San Diego. So we went back there and got a lot of stuff from them for the entire battalion for BAS, so that they'd have it, everything from medications to IV fluids and trauma kits, you name it, everything we can get our hands on. A lot of bandages and stuff that came from there, the ACE wraps and stuff. And then a lot of it was just, there was no school so much as just kind of like getting guys indoctrinated and trained up. A lot of the guys we got were like forward deployed from a naval hospital or somewhere like that, and they'd never actually been in like that kind of environment before. So it was like kind of getting them up to speed, getting them trained, getting them ready, getting them kind of in a place where they could at least, they could do what they had to do. So it was extremely busy time, and it was somewhat not. I don't remember being stressful more so much as just I didn't have time to stress at the time, right? It's like, okay, we got these 40 or 50 guys that just came out of naval hospitals that have no idea what they're up against or what it even really looks like. And like, all right, let's get them up to speed in a week. All right, here we go. So it was very, very busy.
Jeez.
Very busy. It was crazy. It's crazy. X-ray techs and stuff. And you're like, okay, you were an X-ray tech. Now you're a combat casualty care guy. So here's what it looks like, So trying to get guys to kind of change their mindset and everything. It was definitely interesting.
Now that's interesting. I don't think I knew that anybody was like an X-ray tech, for example. Like you just said that. I don't think I knew anybody was that right beforehand. I thought everybody was sort of at least on the more direct care aspect of things.
They were more a lot of them were like X-ray techs, things like that. They came from everywhere. I mean, they sent them from everywhere. It was like, I was backfilling at that time.
Sure. Yeah.
Everywhere. And they'd been through field medical service school, so they had that base knowledge. And most of them had been, a few years before. So they really weren't retaining any of that, and they weren't really aware. And it was like, okay, this is an operational environment. It's completely different, because they're looking for, clean offices to do a patient care in. They're looking for all these things. And we're like, yeah, welcome to get a medicine, you get things fixed and get these guys back in the fight. So good luck. And here you go.
Well, you definitely did your job, because I had nothing but full faith in our docs.
I was going to say,
and Rudy, I mean, were just absolutely phenomenal.
Awesome. Yeah, you could have never told me that any of these guys weren't experienced, because every single person that I had, from the guys at Combat Outpost digging shrapnel out of me, and everybody at Hurricane Point and the guys in Weapons Company, were all fantastic.
We had amazing people. I mean, just these guys, like, I was so impressed the whole way through. I still am. When I think about it, like how impressed I was with what these guys did. They were just absolute superstars. Like, they leaned into it completely. They completely leaned into it, and they just did whatever it took. And that was kind of the mandate before we left. I told our guys, the Weapons Company Corpsman, I told them, look, I don't care what you have to do, just keep them alive. Keep them alive, and let's get them out of there. Let's get them to somewhere where they can possibly save them. Are we going to be able to see everybody? Probably not. Do the absolute best to keep the guy alive. You got to keep the devil on the dick to do it. Do it. You know what I mean? Just keep the guy alive. Like, I don't give a shit. Just keep him alive. And that was the mandate, and I know they did their best. I mean, we lost guys, obviously, but, it was a catastrophic injury, usually for us.
Actually,
any of the guys. Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, that's I hadn't thought about that till this very moment. And you saying that. All three of those guys that we did lose should have been dead right there. They should have been dead right there on the field. And every one of them had a pulse and was breathing on their own when they got on
back to Outpost, and they were,
Which, with my experience and knowledge now, that's actually insane. That is actually that is a super heroic feat. Yeah. Just thinking about it, because I'm all three of them had
catastrophic.
Terrible.
It was bad. Yeah, those were some.
I'm not a doctor, but from what I've understood, that a couple of those guys could have had those injuries in the OR, still
absolutely
not have survived.
No, they were. No. Yeah, well, Shane, now, obviously, right? You know probably better than I do now.
Yeah.
You must cringe when you think about the medicine that went on there to it now. You're like, oh, God.
No,
it's awful. But those guys were so... I just don't know how you save a guy like that. Like, I wouldn't even know where to begin with someone like that. And, like, they had such heavy injuries. But every one of those was like personal. Like I felt like for every one of those deaths to me was like almost like a failure to me. Like boy, I should have been right there, or we should have done this, or we like. There's always that Monday morning quarterback you do and stuff like that because you feel like you want to bring everybody home. That was the goal, right?
Yeah.
It was the devil. We're not paying the toll this time. We're bringing everybody home. And when you can't, it's like becomes very for me. Like back then, it was very ego driven. It was like we're saving everybody. Me or Grimes or Adam Clayton, who was Echo Company Senior Corpsman, or Raymond Parra was Fox Company Senior Corpsman.
Yeah.
Like we would talk, and it was always that same mentality amongst all of us. It was like, we do any damn thing possible and everything possible to bring these guys home. So when you couldn't, it became a very, I won't say a burden, but it was definitely something you carried. It was very personal. Every single guy we lost was personal.
Well, it's appreciate. I'll thank you 20 years on, because it was that mentality that pushed you guys for that level of excellence that did keep us alive. And I know that was a mental and emotional burden that I know you guys still carry. And so thank you for doing that for us.
Thank you. You guys are, like I said, I got to walk with giants. You guys were amazing. I've worked a lot of bad places. I've seen a lot of crazy things in the time since and before, but I've never worked with such a professional, motivated, amazing group of people anywhere at any time. I've never been more impressed with people anywhere at any time. Like I've worked with some amazing people, some amazing detectives, and even beyond that. But that deployment with you guys there was nothing like that team that was there. It was really truly amazing. Amazing. So I remember just this sheer confidence of being able to go into a city that was completely covered and controlled by these psychopaths or whatever, and just owning it every day, just owning it. And then they come out at night and think they had it at night, and we're like, oh yeah, and here we come again, and we're taking it at night. It was just a very, very impressive thing. Although you guys did drive me into a minefield outside. Remember when we were moving into country with the wing, we were dropping the wing off.
Yes.
It was actually the Army, right? They sent us, the Army said, oh no, you got to post up over there. And drive in, look out the window of the Humvee, and here's this nice big yellow mine with a silver tabs on top.
So no one has told that story yet. I've been waiting. I've been waiting because I figured it'd be either me, you, or Hardin that would tell that story. So we were dropping off the wing over at Tecate Air Base.
Yep.
And we were supposed to be posting up a right flank security off the side of the road. 2 other trucks punched off to the left. Nobody thought about it. There was an old ammo supply point pretty close, and so we were like, okay. If there was insurgent activity, it might make sense they'd be out here, scrounging up some old bullets or rounds or who knows what, because there was still stuff in there.
Yep.
And we punched out, and we're driving, and I'm like, I just scream, stop. We stop and look out the window, and there are cluster mines literally everywhere. Literally everywhere. New American cluster mines.
Yep.
Sticking out of the sand.
Yep.
And Hardin was up in the gun, and he's like, fuck, we're surrounded. What the fuck are we going to do? And I was like, well, we're going to drive back on our tire tracks because we made it here.
Yep.
There's no rear view mirror in a fucking Humvee. So literally
you guys got out and walking backwards.
Yep. Hardin was out there, and I was walking the truck back down the tire track, and I was like, nope, don't turn, stop. And, oh God, absolutely 1,000% sure we were dead that day. But
it was so to me, it still stands out as like the best example of the professionalism and like the motivation, that entire deployment, because as bad as that looked, or as bad as that could have been, or as it was, it was still the laughing, it was still the joking, it was still the talking shit to each other, it was still and it got handled just like everything else. It got handled. I remember April 7th, when we had to firefight April 7th to morning April 7th or whatever, we turned that corner, right? No Name Road, right up Route Michigan. We turned that corner, and all hell breaks loose, right? All the rounds are flying. And Rob Weiler, Captain Weiler, jumps out of the Humvee, so I jump out behind him, and I could feel like 3 or 4 rounds in a row. Like I felt the heat. They were close up to my face. I felt the heat snap by. And he turned around, smiled at me. He's like, maybe next time, duck. I was like, man, it didn't hit me. And it made me laugh, because that was the entire deployment. It was just like that. It was like every day, like shit's happening, but we're gonna do what we gotta do, and nobody was gonna get really down about it, or get too caught up in it, or just get too crazy about it, and just it was just excellent leadership and just excellent people. It was really such an impressive time. But I think about that minefield, the thing that it cracks me up still because I'm like, these guys are out there talking smack, joking around, and we drove in the middle of the minefield, but we worked out again, so we were fun. Crazy. Crazy.
Oh, that's funny. I almost hope nobody ever remembered that because we drove into the middle of a fucking cluster minefield. But I'm glad you remember it. I'm glad somebody does.
I do all the time. And that one was on the Army, right? Rob said it was on the Army. It was they had given us the position. They were like, no, it's cleared, it's cleared. No, it wasn't.
Yeah. Yep, that was exactly right. Everybody's like, you're calling it over the radio. You're in a what? We're in a minefield. We're in the middle of a minefield.
Yeah.
Was that
times?
That was early on?
That was like right after we came into country. We were escorting the wing.
Yeah.
Oh, it was on the drive up.
Yeah, so we were literally like dropping the wing off at Takata. We're just doing like exterior security, whatever, perimeter to kind of like get settled in base.
Yep.
Okay.
And, yeah, so we haven't gotten to Ramadi yet, and they're trying to kill us already. So,
Yeah.
Country was a mess. It was good though. It was watching you guys work was amazing. I mean, everybody there. It was watching you guys work from the leadership on down. Obviously, Sergeant Major Booker is that guy's a legend. He's a god amongst men.
Mm-hmm.
Truly, truly impressive man. And just straight on down, Sergeant Major Ellis, God rest him. What a great guy. Just everybody down the line. It was just amazing. Just remember Staff Sergeant Singleton playing the Hurricane in his truck when you guys were punching out.
I
remember that. That was he's a great guy. There's so many great people. Carl Markey, Gunny Markey.
Yep.
Another good guy. Just all the leadership and everybody down the line was just impressive. It was a really, really impressive. And Weapons Company, to me, Weapons Company really was very much, as much as 2-4 was absolutely like, the tip of the spear in that entire time frame in that country. Weapons Company was the very point. It really was. I mean, you guys took the brunt of everything. It was. You were the QRF. You coordinated the raids. You did all the snatches. And how many playing cards did we take? A bunch of those guys.
Yeah.
Everything we did, it was always us. It was our guys. It was you guys out there every single night, every single day, just keeping the city held down, keeping everybody else supported. When Echo got crushed that day, unfortunately, in April, it was us that went in to get them out, to get them to push back and get those guys some kind of measure of justice and at least bring them home,
Yeah.
Crazy.
Well, I'm going to reel you back just a tiny bit.
Yep.
So I know who you went up with because you just mentioned it, but you kind of tell me a little bit about getting into Kuwait, right? Flying over, we flew over and getting into Kuwait and getting organized. Kind of how again, you were sort of senior leadership as far as you were the senior staff NCO for all of our corpsmen, so you were taking care of everything.
Remember when the plane lost an engine? He would stop off. The C-141 Starlift lost an engine. Like, we lost an engine. It looked like it failed. Like, no, it fell off the plane. What the hell? That was crazy. Then we stop off. We're at the Air Force Base, and I remember everybody got a viral gastroenteritis.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody was down. Everybody was sick. So going around scrounging up, anti-nausea meds, Zofran, and IV Zofran, and just IV sit-ups for everybody because they're all in rooms. And I'm like, all right, we're not going to contaminate the rest of the world, so we're going to try and hold this thing together and keep as few as possible from getting it. And then from there, just punched into Kuwait was the waiting in Kuwait was kind of the adjusting period was kind of honestly, it was pretty boring, right? It was like, okay, let's go. You're there. You're like, all right, let's go. Then Kellogg got sick. He got the flu and then with a Bell's palsy case. So I had fluids with him every day and the IV antibiotics with him every day. And dealing with stuff like that, then punching in. From there was a convoy. So it was definitely a unique experience. I remember pulling into Ramadi when we actually left, Tacoma, we're coming into Ramadi. We were on the road. I'm pretty sure it was Route Michigan, but I could be wrong. Coming into the city, and there's this old guy standing outside the small house, and he's doing the finger across the neck thing and smiling. And I kept laughing to myself, thinking man, you have no idea what just drove into your city. You know what I mean? This is a death on a pale horse, man. You don't get I was just thinking this old guy has no clue. These guys really think they're the end all be all. I'm like, good luck, I just remember thinking that clearly, good luck, And but the buildup was, it was definitely weird to be sitting in Kuwait waiting all that time. They had fast food restaurants and everything else, but then you had also those guys coming back that were coming back from Baghdad or Mosul or Ramadi or wherever else, driving in with their Humvees all shot to pieces.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I remember one of the Army medics I talked to when we were there had remember the ear flange, the little green case they have for the ear flange?
Mm-hmm.
He had that on the front of his BDU, but in it was like a whole bunch of pieces of frag. And he's like, oh, this is what I pulled out of my legs. I'm like, oh, good for you. You know what I mean? Nice souvenir. You know what I mean? I probably wouldn't keep it, but okay.
Yeah, that's weird.
Some guys, I guess, just want it.
So were you being being on the corpsman side of things? Were you being brought in on some of these planning meetings and getting spun up and helping to shape how we were moving into Iraq and eventually getting up to Ramadi?
Yeah, there was a lot of There was a lot. It was a lot. I mean, obviously, like Doc Cricker, Doc's son, you know, they were very much essential in that. Chief Jordan, but there was a lot. They included the line corpsmen, like they included us very much in that, in the planning. The bigger part of that being like the medevac plans and being able to kind of say, hey, you know, like for each individual area or site where they were planning on being at. So even when we did raids, when we were in Ramadi, we were doing raids, you know, they would ask me like, okay, you know, here's our satellite images, here's where we're going. What's our best location? You know, we can put a bird here, we can put a bird here. Where, you know, would you prefer to stage? Or so there was a lot of input. They asked for a lot of input on stuff like that. So it definitely I think it made a big difference because it helped them to kind of understand where we were coming from, how we were thinking, our rationale as far as, okay, here's what we can realistically do, and here's what the best course forward for us would be. And then being able to kind of mash it up to the strategic goal. You know, so it definitely is a lot of interaction.
Because I'm kind of remembering it was I think we were already in Kuwait, if not even Ramadi, when we made our kill cards. I remember that coming later. I'm only bringing that up, kind of thinking about what you just said there, of like your guys' input was like, okay, well, this is something new. We haven't really been thinking about this. Let's make sure that you guys have, you know, this needs to be in your left sleeve, so we have all your information if we need it.
Yeah, there was a lot. I mean, I remember when trying to explain to guys before we left, or like talking to the junior corpsmen, like my guys or the guys in weapons company, and even talking with the other line company corpsmen about preparing yourself. Like, look, you might be your best friend, but you might have to put him in a body bag. Like, just do your job. And like instructing the guys, like my thing for the corpsmen, and I think it was the same throughout, was it's okay to grieve, it's okay to be upset, just not in front of the Marines. You know, you have to be that rock because, you know, they're going to grieve, they're going to turn to each other, and that's great and that's good, and they should do that. They should get out of their systems. And we need to also, but you need to do that separately so that you still represent, because you represent something to them. That's that point of hope for these guys that, like, you know, they have to know you're there. They have to know you're solid. Save that shit for a time when you can do it, you know, away from them so that they have that same point. Don't take that hope from them. Don't take that image away. So that was like a big thing. I forgot about that, honestly. I hadn't thought about that, but yeah, that was a big one. And like Cornwall, his wife lost a baby while we were there. That was tough. That was a tough conversation to have with the kid. Like sitting out behind where our hooches were there, right? Sitting out there like by the water and talking with him about that and trying to get him to kind of, you know, I guess some semblance of back to, in my mind, I was like, well, you're going to need some help to get back to like, you know, focus. But he was completely like, you know, he was very upset. It was obviously very upsetting for him. It was very frustrating for him. But he was still very much focused on what he was doing there. He's like, I can deal with that when I get home. I just need to deal with this right now. And I was like, okay. You know, not healthy, but the best mentality you could have while we're doing this. You know what I mean? So
yeah,
he did. He did. He performed really well. He did really well. So just like times like that, it's crazy, right? The little things you forget about that you think about later. But it was a very, very. It was hard. Like when Dang got killed, you know, BSC Dang when he took the RPG, that was a nasty thing. They hadn't thought about that, I don't think, and they moved the Humvee into motor pool. And they wanted, I think, some like Lance Corporals and motor pool to like clean out the Humvee or whatever. And I'm like, absolutely not. So I went over with Josh Fonzie, he's from Fonzie from BAS. I went over with him. I said, we'll clean it up. You know, because the last thing you should ever have you guys doing is loading your friends into a bag or putting up what's left. You know what I mean? Like that's not, you know, that's not what you do. You're stripping somebody their ability, I think, to kind of really stay focused on the fight at that point or something like that. That definitely something that should have fallen on us more. And to the most part, it did. I mean, for the most part, it did. So, but yeah. Crazy.
I've never talking to you guys, the docs. That is, I always had the deepest respect for you guys for what you know the support that you provide, the critical mission that you provide for us. But I never fully appreciated the mental, emotional load that you guys carried for us also until these conversations with the docs that we've been able to talk with, and you're doing it again here. Just did never. I mean, and perhaps as a testament to how well you guys carried it, that just never crossed my mind that there was this whole other mental game load strategy that was coming along with that. I just thought it was a lot more linear. It was like, Marine hurt, fix Marine. Like
that was it. Like that was the instruction. Yeah, that was basically it. There was a lot. And they were smart. I mean, like all these guys, Como, Gibbons, Dialga, and Tuda, all of them were very, very smart guys, very smart. So it was easy to like kind of guide them. It was easy to kind of steer them. They had their moments here and there, their issues here and there, but overall they were amazing people, and they were truly, truly dedicated to you guys. So that made it so much easier to kind of say, okay, here's the direction, go, and just tweak here and there. So. But yeah, there was a lot that was going on in the background. All our corpsmen had prayer cards. I got those from the chaplain when we were actually in Kuwait. So I told them, I said, look, you're probably going to be the last person with somebody when they're going. You know what I mean? So if someone's religious, or they're faithful, they want the last rites, or they want something of like faith like that, you're going to have to be the one. So good luck. Here's your card. You know what I mean?
No
you
shit.
can do it in therapy later. You know what I mean? Like, what are you going to do? It's reality. And like, I remember like loading body bags for deployment, and I think that was probably the most sobering moment for the guys in the BAS was when we were getting our gear out ready before we even left to Kuwait, loading up all these body bags, a lot of body bags. And guys were kind of like, that was probably the for most of them, I think that was probably like when reality kind of kicked in, and you're like, oh shit, we really are going there, But these guys were amazing, man. They made it so easy. They made such a complicated, heavy task so light, so easy. They were just absolute, motivated guys. They're just 100% about it, 100% about getting things done. I mean, Rudy Contreras is probably the most like outwardly obvious example. Rudy's a superstar, man. That guy he's a superstar. He still is. But every one of them had that same kind of dedication and motivation and everything else. Maybe not as apparent, but every one of them. So I had the easiest job in the world, honestly. I really did. It was awesome. I got to really, really experience truly giants. And you guys were such professionals. You really were. I remember, we lost guys, right? And but like specifically comes to mind when Dick Conde died. You guys openly grieving. Nobody hid it. Nobody made it out to be anything it wasn't. Nobody tried to twist it in any way. You guys just openly grieved, and you got right back to work. And I was heartbroken because Conde was such an amazing person. He really was an amazing Marine, an amazing man. That was a huge loss. But beyond that, like I was so impressed just with the professionalism, with the degree that you guys, you honored him, but you got right back to work. You didn't hesitate. You got right back in the fight. You got right back to work. So, and that was throughout every single day. It was that way. So it was definitely a humbling experience to see people like, I've never been anywhere where I felt like that so consistently, so much,
I would imagine you ended up, because I don't remember anybody going to the chaplain, and I don't think that was anything against the chaplain.
No, he's a nice guy.
I know he was. I remember him, Weigelt, right? That was his name?
Yeah, yep.
I remember being a super nice guy, but I don't remember anybody going to the chaplain. And maybe they did, and I just didn't know it, and they just didn't tell me because they thought I wouldn't understand or something. But I remember people going to you and to other senior corpsmen.
Yeah.
Were you providing a lot of psychiatric care as well? Like while we were there?
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. It was a lot of you have guys who felt guilty, you had guys who felt like they could have done more, or they shouldn't have done what they did, or like there was a lot there for guys to unpack, I think, especially like the younger guys a lot.
Yeah.
But the NCOs, like, you guys are amazing at keeping you guys motivated and keeping them moving and stuff. Some of these guys was more personal stuff, the wife's cheating or whatever, the girlfriend, dear John, me, whatever. You got a lot of that stuff. But then when the fighting really started, it started to become more like, dead kids, or, maybe a woman got shot or something like that, but like, she's holding a weapon, she makes herself an engaged target. She's a target, but guys felt like, I think, a certain kind of way about it, because to them it was like, you're fighting other men, like, this is what we do, right? We go to war. But then when kids show up carrying munitions, or you get like a woman carrying a rifle, it tends to muddy that water for people. So there was definitely a lot of that side of it too, where people come quietly and talk about what was frustrating them. And then even some senior people who I think were just having those moments of insecurity about their position, or about their ability to kind of get things done, or like feeling like they screwed up or they lost them, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But, so there was a lot of that. There's a lot of like psychological first aid, I would say. I'm definitely not the best therapist. I'm not gentle at all. I'm a blunt instrument, so.
Well, I think over there you don't you need blunt instruments when it comes to that, because we needed the black and whiteness. I mean, and you said it yourself, like it's due, and we'll deal with it later. If in the perfect situation, yes, let's unpack. Let's unpack this and really deal with this. But
right,
if the danger's too high to do that, we need you to have your head in the game. So here, I'll help you fold this up. We'll put it in the box, put it on the shelf, and we'll deal with this in 9 months.
That's exactly what it was too, right? It was like, let the steam out of it, let the air out of the bag, whatever, let it kind of get out what you have to get out for now, and then we'll come back to it later, and kind of get them, just basically psychological band-aids,
Did you know you were going to need to do that, or was that just something that you kind of found yourself falling into?
It was something we spoke about beforehand. It's something that occurred to me beforehand that, I tried to research as much as I could. I tried before we deployed. I tried to figure out, okay, I tried to look at like previous historical data and see, okay, what kind of issues were faced before? What kind of issues can we expect in this? What kind of issues? Because it was a different fight. It wasn't the Iraqi invasion was the world's biggest drive-by, right? They just kind of blew through past everything and killed everything in a way. So
yeah. I love that analogy.
So this was more of a, like, we're going to stay put. We're taking this city. We're going to hold this city. So I actually ended up looking back at like historical data from like even like World War II and stuff, where they were, what kind of experiences were people having, or what kind of combat was the unit seeing, or what kind of issues were they experiencing. And it was like, it surprised me how much, I guess, psychological like breakdowns or things of that nature came up, just because of the constant, anxiety of, is it going to be today? Are we going to get mortared? Are we going to get hit with rockets? We're going to get, into a firefight. Like, and it was constant for them. Even back then, it was that constant fear, like living in that constant fear. So for me, it seemed like, okay, that's definitely something we need to be aware of and kind of ready for. And I told the guys before we left, like, look, these guys are going to come talk to you about what's bothering them. A, keep their strictest confidence, and B, don't show them, your side of things, as tempting as it might be to try and, empathize with them and show them like, oh yeah, look, I feel the same way. It's not the right thing to do. You need to be the rock that they come and unleash on. So let them unleash on you, and then you go find somebody else, me or somebody else, and you dump it, and we keep passing it along. And the running joke was, we'll just keep giving it to Doc Cricker because he's indestructible. So that would be the end point. So. But they were great guys. But there was definitely something that we talked about prior to. I know myself, actually, all the line corpsmen, like all four of us, like the senior line corpsmen, we all were definitely looking at that and trying to understand what the hell we were going to be up against, so that we knew exactly what we needed, exactly how we needed to be ready. And we just wanted to, you want to do the best you can. You want to bring home everybody possible if you can. So we were trying everything possible to kind of, any scenario, no matter how ridiculous it seemed, we were like, all right, if it did happen, what would we need? How would we need to address it? What would need to be in place for us to minimize the casualties on something like that, or to minimize the damage to casualties on something like that? And then we would work from there. So it was a lot of like time spent talking, trying to plan within the BAS, trying to figure out where, we needed to put our energy and our focus, so that we were absolutely ready for what was probably going to come. So that psych was a big part of that. And Chief Jardon was big on that. He very much pushed that. Dave Carbunco, the IDC corpsman, he was phenomenal guy. Dave's a phenomenal guy. And he was very, very good at teaching and very, very good at kind of instilling in these guys the need to be able to, be that rock like we were talking about and bring it back when they need to bring it back into the BAS, so to speak, like to the leadership there or to somebody else. So it was a lot. There was a lot going on, but that was definitely a big part of it. I'm sure you guys had the same thing going. I mean, we had long, long nights. It was a very, very short spin up. You guys had the same.
Yeah, absolutely. Something you said just struck me, and it's running through my brain. I also think you're the first person to bring up the sort of the moral injury portion of it, but also how ugly an insurgency really is, because a lot of people they've mentioned it, but not in the same way. Often the fighters were teenagers, which some of these
issues, yeah.
I mean, some of our guys had close to teenage or preteen kids, right? So it's weird to see that.
Yep.
And definitely there were women who took up arms. There were plenty of times the insurgents were using women specifically because they thought that we would not shoot them.
Yep.
And so a lot of the moral ambiguity had to have been unusual.
Yep.
And I know again, you've brought up the history component of it, which I think is also interesting, because that was something in World War II, and that was definitely something in Vietnam, of using women and children and moral injury being a thing. Did you find, I don't remember you specifically being highly religious. Did you remember yourself leaning on faith or anything like that? Or did you bring any of that component to it? I really don't remember. Me and you didn't talk like that much.
I was not like, I always had faith. I never doubted like God exists, right? I never had a doubt. For me, it was never a moment where I doubted it was true or he existed. I never had much faith in like organized religion, I guess. I grew up Roman Catholic, so like, it was very a standoffish kind of religion. Right?
You had an adversarial religious experience, yeah.
Yeah, so it was like, so if the religious part never really took hold, I guess, with me, but the faith was always there. But for me, it was more like, especially in Ramadi at the time, my whole like faith, my whole thought, my whole everything was like, okay, we got to get these guys through this and get them home. Sure. That was my only like overriding thought. So every single day, every single moment, it was just what can I be doing right now, or what can I do right now to make things better? How can I fix this, or how can I get that moving, or how can I make sure this guy's okay? And trying to keep on top of guys and make sure guys weren't getting too caught up with things they had to do. Because it was, again, there was a lot of, it's a combat zone and insurgency in a city where ugly things happen. So there was definitely a lot of that, like a lot of time spent on that, but it wasn't so much of a faith-based thing. I mean, I definitely talked to Chaplain a couple of times when we were there about like faith and everything. But it wasn't like my priority. It was my primary. It was mostly just my overall, like, overriding goal was I want to bring everybody home in the best possible shape I can. My concern was post-traumatic stress and the things that go after, because that's something that definitely needs to be thought about.
Sure.
That was important to me, that we were making sure guys are getting a chance to kind of express it, get it out of their system, talk it out, so that it wasn't becoming that little poison seed that blows up in their head later, And I mean, look what we see now, right? 22 a day.
Yeah.
Well, it shouldn't be that way. But that was definitely something that was in the forefront of my mind the whole time, especially when we were there, because it was such an ugly place. I think people ask me now, I tell them like Ramadi's a meat grinder. That really is. That city was a meat grinder. And that's really all it was there to do. It was just grind meat. It was just it's an ugly place as far as at that time, how really violent it was, and just how I was like, it seemed like we were doing the absolute best we could to be constructive, building a hospital, build a school for the kids, doing things like that. And like, remember when the school got built for the kids, and I think it was Fox Company was there.
Mm-hmm.
We were there, and they RPG'd the kids in the middle of the, like, they were just so indiscriminately disgusting, those people. So it was things like that to me were like, okay, these are things that definitely need to be spoken about or dealt with appropriately now, because if we do a little bit now just to make sure that this guy's okay, we're planting the seed for later, for when he's not okay, for him to be able to bring it out more easily, rather than just letting him bury it and live with it. And so it was definitely something that I thought about, but faith was always there. I was always, I think I tell people all the time, like, I was always believed in God. I just turned my back on him when I wanted to do things that I didn't think he would approve of. You know, that's true.
Yeah.
So,
I used to say a very similar thing. There's 4 years that we agreed not to talk.
yeah. You're not going to want to see this, so I'll get back to you.
Yes.
That's good.
It's funny.
Yeah, I was just curious because you were kind of put in a position of counseling, and so that might have been, I don't know, I might have been something you leaned on. I wasn't sure.
There were guys who definitely came with like from that position. There were guys who I don't want to mention names or specifics, but there were guys who and people who did things that they truly had a hard time accepting, and they came to it from that place of faith, you know. And I said, okay, and my answer to that was always the same, though. It was like, you know, God's not going to put you where you're not supposed to be. He's not going to put you somewhere doing something that he didn't want you to do, you know. And so as ugly as it might be, he's given you a burden to carry, but it's a burden he knows you can carry. So, you know, you have to kind of keep that in perspective. And then also the fact of the reality side of things, like, or as far as our version of reality where we are right now, you have to be able to kind of look at things in a way that you know, is honest, just realism, right? So I couldn't help where that Mark 19 round went, or I couldn't help who put the weapon in that woman's hands or that child's hands or whatever it was. You know, I can't help the circumstance that created that person being there at that exact moment. I can only deal with that exact moment. So I would kind of try and broach it that way with guys to kind of give them, like I said, it's really just a psychological Band-Aid, right? You put this Band-Aid on and Band-Aid on your bullet wound, and we'll deal with you later.
Yeah.
If you like what you've heard, this is a multi-part episode. Make sure you listen to the rest of the story.